second division. So that's what we're here to talk about right now. Over here, Joe, right here in this seat here. So the thing is, Joe, you have a few. I could read something here that you've written for me. I'm going to go by ear here now. Brunswick Juventus are going to the second division. You put your interest in there as well. Interest right now to play in the second division. How's it looking? What are you thinking at the time? And things need to be done in the second division. You're close to it, Joe.
Okay. Well, I'll speak about Brunswick Juventus. For the first time, the club's matured, and it's prepared to go to the finances, the ones who back this club. I believe that they've already committed the dollars, and they're prepared to bring the club to a professional level. So that's a maturity stage for our club after 75 years, which is good. National second division, it's a must in our country. We need, like Graham Arnold said, more professional players, so Australia has a chance to win a World Cup in the next 40 to 50 years. We haven't got enough game time. So, when Football Australia announced that they are going to have a national second division with professional and full-time football players and administrators, there were people saying you won't even get 10 or 12 clubs applying. For the first time, I have to admit, we got 38 clubs which applied, 32 applications, which is incredible. You would have people like John Warren, the late John Warren, Fielman Marlis, Sir Arthur George, saying, thank God after 50, 60 years that we've been involved with this game, we're finally getting somewhere. So I believe that the National Second Division is a must. I think that Football Australia has to give a fair go to it now, should interview all 32 applicants, should see and make sure that they're mature and ready to start this second division fully professional. The A-League needs to go to 16, and the way it should go to 16 for the benefit of the game, through merit on the football park. So that means if we're getting clubs investing money, and it'll cost them anywhere from 3.5 to 5 million a year, give them the 2 years to 3 years to mature and promote up. Let's go from 12 to 14, let's go from 14 to 16, let's do the pyramid of our game, which is what Football Australia came out and documented 2 years ago. So I think we're ready for a national second division. Clubs have matured. The first time that we've seen South Australia has come up with a combined team, backed by Football South Australia and backed by 3 big clubs. And that shows maturity. When you can get 2 Italian clubs, which are very good Italian clubs, and a Greek club to combine and put a combined bid, that's showing you that it's matured. We've got Brisbane Strikers who've played in the National League with another 3 clubs in Brisbane combining and putting a bid. 2 clubs in Western Australia have combined and put a bid. We've got a Canberra bid. This is what our game's been waiting for, what we never thought. We've got clubs like Preston that are drawing 6,000 people at home, and I love it. We can't get teams in the A-League to get 6,000 people at a game. Forget victory, we're always up there in the 5,000 and 6,000s lately. But this is what the game needs. The game needs this, to go along and to grow and get more people and more players involved. If we have a professional second division, that's giving Graham Arnold, all these young players that are on the bench on professional contracts, giving them game time in the B-League. We're starting to have coaches under pressure because, as you know, in England, all over the world, forget America, that's why America will never win a World Cup. If a coach is under pressure and he's second last or third last anywhere in the world, they have to pick up their performance or they're out because the team is going to relegate. And that's what we need in our game.
Give Joe a hand, please, guys. Joe, how can we get people back to the game? Do you think that we can, as the second division starts, do you think that support will come back that the NSL had when we had the NSL out there? And of course, the clubs were all community clubs. And the thing is about the community clubs, those clubs were more of an outing. People used to go to an outing. It was all European-backed clubs. Migrants used to started them all. This is where our passion has gone. Now, we need to get that passion back in these clubs. Do we have that passion? I'm sure we do, because a lot of those clubs, the former NSL clubs, have put their interest in. What do you think of that?
Look, I agree. A lot of the NSL clubs have put their interest back. Let's go back to the past.
Yes.
In 95, 96, a particular person who never knew if the ball was round or square was chairman of Football Australia, the ASF in those days, decided we're going to have a locked door competition. Let's get rid of free clubs. Unfortunately, our club in Heidelberg and Parramatta Eagle were one of the free clubs that they got rid of. We'll lock the doors. And what happened to the NSL? I never forget Tony Labuceta's words to George Vasilopoulos. He said, George, you have started tonight the end of the NSL. We won't last more than a decade. The NSL did not last more than a decade. By 2004 it was destroyed. People were brought away from the game. No promotion, relegation. TVs didn't want to know about us. It took Frank Lowy to start the circle of creating a new A-League and making it a professional game. From there, Australia qualified to the World Cup. People have started to come back. Last year, Australia made the quarter-finals in the World Cup. If you would have told me that in the last 2 World Cups that Australia's been in, we lost to the world champions, we got eliminated by the world champions, and one was, being from Italian background, a penalty given in the last minute eliminated Australia. Italy won the World Cup. Australia was unlucky to draw in the last 2 minutes against Argentina from a young kid, missed a goal, but we even missed one 7 minutes before that. If we score that, we go to extra time. We might make the semi-finals. Now, if we did not have professional football, there is no way that we would have been in the world game where we are. We've got, for the first time in our lifetimes, the Women's World Cup. This will bring tourism dollars to Australia. This should be, and I hope the Matildas win this World Cup. We've had Postagoglu win the Asian Cup for us. Let's hope the Matildas win this World Cup in our home territory. Regarding bringing people back, of course, a national second division, which is now matured. We've got A-League clubs which are dying and needs the competition to go to 16. You've got now 32 applicants. We should be doing a 16-team national second division, full-time professional players, administrators. We start to create new coaches. We start to get these young kids, instead of being on the bench, playing in a second division for competition, they go to the A-League. The A-League should straight away start opening, and Football Australia's mission should be one thing: scrap this salary cap. You've got overseas investors. We've got the Manchester Group investing money. Your job in the A-League is to get minimum, the A-League champions should be in the grand final, if not win it, but in the grand final every year of the Asian Football Champions Cup. That's what we should be driving. The Australian national team and the Matildas should be Asian champions every 4 years. That's what we've got to try to. Let's start getting our Joeys back up. Let's start getting the young Matildas back up. Australia is now at its greatest birth and the growth is there, and for the first time I can say we're matured. I never thought that this club here said we're prepared to let the investors come in, do the best for this club, and bring this club together with whoever, and let's aim for the A-League. Now, this is a club that's been playing in NPL too. I was glad to see Preston apply for the National Second Division, because this is going to bring another 6,000 people at every National Second Division game. South Melbourne, they've applied. They're a rival to our club. Now, Andrew, we're a better club than what they were. But it's good to see that South Melbourne is putting an application in, and now let's see what they've been screaming for the last 15 years. Give us a chance, and we'll be back in the highest level of Australian football. Now allow these clubs, because don't forget, South Melbourne is a club that can bring 5,000 to 10,000 people at a game. Right? So these people here are finally there, they're getting their finances ready, and they're prepared to put full-time administrators and full-time playing. So why stop them? That's what I say. And the most important thing is, Football Australia said that they want to unite the whole football community and bring it into one. They want a pyramid football. Now's the time that the pyramid football should start. Let's not divide the football community. Let's get them together. And if we do a National Second Division, please do not start in winter, because let's learn from what happened in the past. National Second Division has to start at the same time as the A-League, because how are we going to have promotion and relegation? Are we going to have that the first team, or the first two teams that finish in the second division the week after starting the A-League? That can't happen. We need them to mature. If you finish on top and you go into the A-League, you need your 3 months to get ready to play in the A-League. That's what we should learn. This will create, remember Harry, this will create big TV dollars, because if the AFL from 2025 to 2031 is getting $4.5 billion in TV, that's $750 million per year for the AFL. Our game has got to offer today the Australian national team, the Matildas, the young Matildas, the young Socceroos, the Australian Cup, the A-League Cup, the Asian Cup. If we combine all of these, and don't forget we've had 1.2 million viewers watching Australia play at 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm sure if we combine all of these, if Football Australia says we're going to go and sell a whole package and let Channel 9 and 7 fight for it, Channel 10 fight for it, I'm sure that we can demand the same dollars that the AFL's demanding. And that's where our principle is. And once we get that, that means money gets divided to the A-League, the second division, the state and territory federations, which they would put the money into grassroots. Australian champions get some money to play in the Asian Cup. Whoever wins the A-League Grand Final gets money to play in the Asian Cup. And maybe one day, before I pass away, we might end up seeing a World Cup in Australia. Our dream should be that in 2042, Australia has a World Cup.
Exactly. Joe, the other thing I'd like to ask you is, I'm very concerned about the second division with promotion and relegation. I don't know when we're going to get this. I was told 2 to 3 years, but then 10 years doesn't sound like a very good time to do promotion and relegation. What do you think?
Look, it's pretty simple. Everyone in the last week has seen what I've written down. The A-League has now decided that they're going to sell franchises again, so that means they'll go to 16 teams. If that happens, there's no point of having a national second division, because if that happens, whoever invests $25 million in the A-League, which will be 2 teams next year and 2 teams the year after, they would minimum, somebody that invests 25 million, they would have to outlay another 15 million to establish it. They're not going to be guaranteed of crowds and sponsors straight away, but that locks the door for the A-League. They've got their 16 teams. To start a second division, you're not going to get full-time professional because you can't be promoted for at least 15 to 20 years because the gates are locked in the A-League. The A-League can't allow that they receive 25 million from each new franchise and tell them you've only got 2 or 3 years. No, they're going to have to give them at least 15 to 20 years licence commitment because they've thrown the dollars in there. So now this is where Football Australia has got the vote for the good of the game. This is where Football Australia has to decide. Do we backtrack and the 15-year plan that we had that we're going to unite football together and that we're going to create a professional second division with promotion and relegation? Do we eliminate that and go to a franchise 16 teams? Secondly, are we part of the AFC or are we now going to join Oceania again? Because we've got Wellington in the A-League and they've got their own rules because Wellington hasn't got the visa system that all the Australian players have. Wellington is allowed to have New Zealand and Australian players which don't count as visa players, right? And then anybody outside of that, they bring in as a visa player. If Wellington is part of our Australian National League, because I'm worried now for Australian football, that's my main concern, Australian football. If Wellington's part of the Australian A-League, they should, as minimum, comply with every other Australian team in the A-League and say, if you bring in a New Zealand player, we're not here to promote Football New Zealand's players. Your New Zealand players would be as a visa spot. Secondly, now we want to introduce Auckland. I believe FA had problems with the AFC to convince them that we could keep Wellington. But now we want to introduce Auckland. So Football Australia here has to decide, are we going to promote New Zealand players for the New Zealand national team, or are we going to promote our Australian players to help the Australian national team in men and women? That's what we've got to decide. And that decision, and I hate it when people say, oh, this is the A-League's fault. This is not the A-League's fault, because like every big corporation, Coles, Wesfarmers, the CEO of Wesfarmers decides what's going to happen at Kmart, Target and Bunnings. Not the managing director of Target or the managing director of Kmart. The CEO of Wesfarmers decides their direction. In this case here, it's the CEO and Football Australia Board have to decide, are we going to be part of the AFC? Are we going to promote Australian football? And are we going to grow the game through the proper channels and not kill the clubs and divide this game and divide our football supporters by closing the door in the A-League and leaving the rest of the clubs back where they are? That's how I see the game. National second division, I can't see going fully professional. Clubs investing $3 to $5 million every year for the next 20 years and telling them, but you're never going to go up. We just want you to get all of our players, you work on them so the A-League can take them for free of charge. I can't see any club doing that.
That's the thing, guys. The thing about this, Joe, is I'm just really concerned about having a second New Zealand team. I mean, where is this coming from? I mean, isn't there any consultation with the FA or the club owners as well in the A-League? That's the other thing too. Why are they going ahead on their own without any consultation, Joe? Why are they doing this?
Look, don't blame the A-League for all of this.
Yes.
Because I get it from a lot of people. I go to watch every game. I go and watch South Melbourne. I'll go and watch Heidelberg. I go and watch my old club here, Brunswick Juventus. on the weekends when the A-League. I bring my kids to every A-League game because in my house it's only the real football, not the Easter egg football. But let's not blame the A-League because, as I said, Danny Townsend can come up with an idea. Don't forget, he's got to have approval, or he's got to discuss it at least with James Johnson, who is the CEO of Football Australia. All right? So that's how corporate governance is work, that's how big organisations work, and that's definitely how Football Australia is working. So, that he wants to come up with Auckland, it is James Johnson's job and Football Australia chairman and board to go to him and say, no, you're not having another team from New Zealand. Let's start getting a team out of Wollongong. Let's start getting a team out of Tasmania, because we're talking about Tasmania, who's part of Australia. We've left them out of our game for a long time. Now today the AFL is talking of introducing an AFL team out of Tasmania. Wouldn't it be good if we're the first sport to introduce a Tasmanian team in our national game? Don't forget, football, our real football in Australia is what penetrates around the whole world, because when Australia plays in a World Cup, the whole world knows who Australia is. The AFL and the NRL cannot give the Australian public what we can deliver in the world of sport.
Exactly. Guys, give him a hand, please. Joe, thank you very much for today. And thank you for inviting us to, of course, the Brunswick Juventus, a very historical club in the NSL. Thank you guys for joining us today. Thank you very much for our guests, Andrew Zinni, Dino DiMarcio, and the President. Where is this guy? He's hiding, is he? Where's the President? Is he gone, has he? After the juniors. Come on, bring him in, mate. I'm only joking. But thanks, guys, tonight from Football Less. Thank you for inviting us. It's all happening, and we're going to keep continuing our show as much as we can to push the second division, just like Joe is. And so thank you, guys. Thank you for joining me. Thank you.